Hello everyone and welcome to Varamore Things. Feel free to follow me and subscribe to see more of my content. Thank you, and I hope you'll enjoy the video. Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a look at the top 10 modern cards from the new expansion Murder at Karlov Manor. We're going to discuss how strong they are and how they could be used in the 2024 modern metagame. I identified 10 cards, but I think there may be more cards modern playable in this expansion. I ranked this card from the weakest to the strongest, so we will start with number 1, the weakest in my opinion, and ramp all the way up to the number 10, the strongest in my opinion. We will also have an 11th honorable mention, a card that I really like, but we will talk about that later. So stay with me. Here comes card number 1. Card number 1 is Undergrowth Recon. So this card is a green enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This works very similarly to Crucible of Worlds. The difference is that you don't use your land drop with Undergrowth Recon, while you use your land drop with Crucible of Worlds. So if you have both a land card in hand and you want to reanimate a land card from your graveyard, you cannot do that with Crucible, but you can do that with Undergrowth Recon. So I identified some cards and some synergies that may work with Undergrowth Recon. Perhaps Ghost Quarter, Volatile Fault, and Demolition Field. These destroy target lands may be very strong with Undergrowth Recon, especially if paired with themselves. Like, I don't know, 4 Volatile Fault, 4 Ghost Quarters, and a few Demolition Fields. You can really totally disrupt your opponent's mana base. Another way to use Undergrowth Recon is by replaying or putting again into the battlefield tapped to be more right. Urza Saga or Nurturing Peatland. The only thing is that the land card comes into the battlefield tapped, so Nurturing Peatland will draw you a card once each 2 turns, so not that strong. While Urza Saga will come into the battlefield tapped, you won't care about that since Saga will get his counter. And on the second turn, Saga will be able to create a token. So pretty strong with Urza Saga. I don't know if this card can actually see play in any of the decks that are existing at the moment. So as I was saying, if you develop a deck around this card, this can be perhaps very interesting. I don't know, maybe paired with Life from the Loam, Ransacked, I don't know, Elvish Reclaimer, I don't know, you see, like a Lance Shell, similar to the Legacy's one, disrupting your opponent with Ghost Quarters while creating your board with Urza Sagas, Ransacked, and Ragavan. I don't know, maybe this card can actually see some play. So card number 2 is Forensic Gadgeteer. So this card reminds me of Vidalcan Archmage, printed back in Darksteel in 2003, 2004, I can't remember correctly. By the way, whenever you cast an artifact spell, Investigate, activated abilities of artifacts you control cost 1 less to activate. This effect can reduce the mana in that cost to less than 1 mana, so you will have to pay at least 1 to activate artifacts abilities, and you cannot pay 0. So the only thing that actually makes sense with this guy or this girl, I cannot tell, by the way, with this card is Urza, Lord High Artificer, because all your clues, thanks to Urza, can draw a card by themselves because you can tap and untap the artifacts you control to add 1 blue mana. You will add this mana to pay the cost of sacrificing the clue. That is going to be reduced to 1 thanks to Forensic Gadgeteer's abilities. So you can actually draw off of the clue by himself with all the clues you have and draw a bunch of cards. By the way, to be honest, this seems like a bit too hard to get online, because this guy alone costs 3 mana, Urza costs 4 mana, so this guy dies to Bolt, dies to Unholy Heat, dies to almost everything, so this, and also to have some clues on the battlefield, you have to cast artifact spells. But if you want to cast Urza in the following turn, you won't be able to cast many artifact spells unless they are Memnite, Ornithopters, or Frogmite, or some affinity spells. So to get this engine going, it's going to be pretty hard. But I find this card pretty interesting. This can be a card advantage engine that some artifacts deck can use. So, card number 3. Card number 3 is Doorkeeper Thrull. Basically, this guy is a Potara fusion between Hushbringer, Hushwing Griff, and the Tocatli Honor Guard. So this guy has the flying ability from the Hushbringer and the Hushwing Griff, has the flash ability from the Hushwing Griff, and has creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger from all these guys, but also this guy has artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. So this is the strongest of them all. The only thing that he doesn't have is a 3 on toughness. He only has 2, but I don't think this will actually matter that much. This is not a main deck card, and also this is not a human like Tocatli, so pretty hard to play in a human's shell, but this could be a very strong sideboard card against, you know, Bowmasters, Grief, Solitude, Stoneforge Mystic, and Primeval Titan, and whatever comes in mind. So this guy is a pretty safe keep in any sideboard cards of a white deck. So at number 4 we have Archdruid's Charm. So apparently they are printing back the Archmage's Charm Circle they once printed in Modern Horizon. Archdruid's Charm gives you a lot of flexibility for only 3 mana at instant speed. The first mode you can choose is search your library for a creature or land card and reveal it. Put it on the battlefield tapped if it's a land card, so this thing is ramping if it's a land. And can tutor up, I don't know, Valakut, Urza Saga, Bojuka Bog, Poseiju that you can afterwards bring back to your hand thanks to Simic Guilegate or whatever it's the Amulet Titan land called. Bounce lands. The second mod, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control, so this can work as a creature removal. And the third mode is exile target artifact or enchantment. So you can exile Urza Saga, Amulet of Vigor, the One Ring, Leyline Binding, and whatever you need to exile in that moment. All of this in one card. The only thing is that you have to pay 3 green mana and not many decks can afford to do so. But this is a lot of value and flexibility for only 3 mana at instant speed in the green colors. So maybe one day this card will see play in some decks, perhaps. So number 5. Number 5 is going to be Case of the Crimson Pulse. So this thing here reminds me of Avaricious Dragon. This card says when this case enters the battlefield, discard a card, then draw 2 cards. To solve, you have no cards in hand. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. Once this card is solved, at the beginning of your upkeep, discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. So this thing works as a mix between Avaricious Dragon and Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Of course, as a standalone card, Fable of the Mirror Breaker looks like a stronger card. More flexible and more value off of it. But I think there are decks that can use the discard your hand 10 draw 2 cards thing. Perhaps, I don't know, Dredge could use this. I can see Dredge casting these on turn 3 and going off on turn 4 and eventually win the game. Or either some Asmorano plus Vengevine and Dolowine cards, or you see with Madness cards such as the Blazing Rootwalla. You know, I think this card is really interesting. There is definitely some play potential in here. I don't know if this deserves the 5th place, but I really love cards like this. And I used to play Avaricious Dragon back in Legacy Red Stompy, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. So 9 years ago or something. So I really love this discard your hand, but you draw some cards thing. Because you see, at the beginning of your upkeep, discard your hand and draw 2 cards. This means that you can draw 3 cards a turn, every single turn. The only thing that is you're going to discard your hand at the beginning of the upkeep, but you will have 3 new cards every single turn. So this is pretty interesting, even for decks like Burn that will usually run out of cards. I don't know, but this thing has some potential. Let's take a look at number 6. Number 6 is another case of the Ransacked Lab. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. To solve, you've cast 4 or more instant and sorcery spells this turn. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. Once this thing is solved, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. This is so huge. This reminds me of Jace's Sanctum that costed 1 more and said almost the same. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, scry 1. So this thing is absurdly more powerful than Jace's Sanctum. Costs less mana and you actually draw a card instead of scrying. So you can see the power up in Magic cards during the years. The only deck that could actually fit this card, I think, is Izzet Storm. You see, you have Goblin Electromancer, Barrel Chief of Compliance, and most of the time, if you don't have one of these 2 cards onto the battlefield, you cannot actually win the game. So, thanks to Case of the Ransacked Lab, you may have another way to actually close out the game if you don't have a Goblin Electromancer or Barrel Chief of Compliance into the battlefield. Also, this thing not only reduces the mana cost of instant and sorcery spells you cast, but will also draw you a card every single time you cast an instant or sorcery spell. This is insane. This thing is insane. You can Manamorphose, draw 2, Ritual, draw 1, Ritual, draw 1. Oh my gosh, this is insane. Gifts Ungiven, draw 1. This is insane. This has some absurd potential here. I think this card will definitely see play, if not in a tier 1 deck, but this will give new life to some other decks in the format, such as Izzet Storm. Okay, let's take a look at number 7. Number 7 is Insidious Roots. This thing may look like a total crap, but if you think about that, what does Insidious Roots say? It's a 2-mana enchantment. Creature tokens you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 0/1 green plant creature token that can be tapped for adding 1 mana of any color. 10, put a +1/+1 counter on each plant you control. So what does this mean in practical terms? This means that if we have multiple Underworld Cookbook or even just one Underworld Cookbook on the battlefield, we activate that, we discard a Novel Chase Daredevil, we create a food token triggering Daredevil, Daredevil leaves the graveyard, okay, triggering Insidious Roots and comes back to our hand. So we trigger Insidious Roots. What happens? We create a 0/1 green plant token that becomes a 1/2, okay. If we do this again, we will create another one. We will create a 0/1 giving +1/+1 to this token and the one we had before, so we have a 1/2 and a 2/3. What happens if we do this again? We have a 3/4, a 2/3, a 1/2, they all add mana of any one color, and we can do this repeatedly every single turn. There's no limit to this, so this thing here can actually work as a finisher in an Asmorano, Underworld Cookbook plus Oval Chaser Devil Conjure Familiar deck. This thing is insane and can also work as a ramping up. So if we do Underworld Cookbook, let's say twice a turn, and we also have the Cauldron Familiar. Oh my gosh, this is going to be insane. This is going to be insane. Insidious Roots can actually close out the game in these decks in 2 or 3 turns and generates infinite tokens, and that is just insane. You can have Saga tokens, Insidious Roots tokens, and Plants tokens. This is going to be insane. I will definitely try this thing once. Maybe the same day that the expansion is going to be released, I will try this because this is looking insanely fun. Well, let's take a look at, I think, was it number 8? Number 8 is Breakout. So Breakout is a 2-mana sorcery. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them. If that card is mana value 2 or less, you may put it into the battlefield and it gains haste until the end of turn. If you didn't put the revealed card onto the battlefield this way, put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So the first target I had in mind was Territorial Kavu. You can look for a Kavu on turn 2 and put a 5/5 hasty Kavu onto the battlefield on turn 2, which is pretty solid and strong, considering that on the next turn you can swing again with the Kavu and go Tribal Flames and Bolt and your opponent is almost dead. So this thing is insane. But the more I look at the card, the more I was thinking about Devoted Druid. So Devoted Druid was relying on Eladamri's Call to actually work. But I think that with Breakout, you won't need anymore to play Eladamri's Call, which is a super good card, but with Breakout you can win on the spot by looking for V0 remedies or either Devoted Druid. So I will definitely try this after I try the card I was talking about before that I completely forgot the name. Sorry, so many new cards. I will definitely try to play a Devoted Druid combo with Breakout. Also, last but not least, you can also break out to look for a Conspicuous Noob and combo in the same turn if you can do that. Breakout has really some potential because you can look at the top 6 card, put into the battlefield the creature with mana 2 or less will also gain haste, but if you don't put it into the battlefield, you can grab another creature with the mana value you want, such as Scion of Draco, or whatever you might need for your combo, or whatever you might need later in your hand. So Breakout is a really interesting cantrip, a proactive cantrip that can win games on the spot if put in the right shell. This can also work in decks such as Samwise Gamgee combo. Yeah, I know we're talking about tier 3 decks, but you never know. Maybe this card will revitalize some archetypes. Or this can also work in the Amelia Pioneer combo deck that someone tried to play in Modern. So this is really interesting. So let's talk about number 9. number 9 is Reenact The Crime. Maybe my favorite card from the expansion. The options here are pretty obvious. So what does Reenact the Crime do? It costs 4 mana, 3 of those are blue. Instant speed, exile target non-land card in a graveyard that was put there from anywhere this turn. This means not only your graveyard, but also the opponent's graveyard, so maybe you can put a Primeval Titan in a graveyard somehow and play it. By the way, copy it. You may cast a copy without paying its mana cost. So what this actually means, we can, with Cookbook or whatever card we want, a Crab Vine or whatever, we can put Omniscience or Emrakul into the graveyard, and in response to Emrakul's trigger, we can just cast Reenact the Crime, copy Emrakul, casting the copy without paying its mana cost, getting another turn, and eventually winning the game on the spot. So this thing looks pretty insane because you can already play a similar strategy with Goryo's Vengeance. But that deck wasn't that consistent because you only had 4 Goryo's Vengeance. So what happens when you add more Goryo's Vengeance effect to that deck? Maybe this becomes more than a tier 2 deck. So I'm super excited to see Reenact the Crime in play, and I really want to try that out as fast as possible. Maybe you're wondering why Resurgent Belief is here. So I've been trying for years to actually build a Resurgent Belief deck with Omniscience and Into the Multiverse, Shark Typhoon and whatever. So perhaps this is about time that when I put Reenact the Crime into the, Omniscience into the graveyard and I'm not able to play Resurgent Belief because I don't have Resurgent Belief in hand, I can just Reenact the Crime and play Omniscience via Reenact the Crime, which could be also very good and very solid. So I'm pretty excited to brew with this card. This is probably my favorite. Let's take a look at number 10, the top card for Modern from the new expansion in my opinion. Leyline of the Guildpact. So this thing is just insane. Okay, stay with me. This thing is insane for many reasons. The first one is you don't actually have to pay that because that's a leyline and will just enter the battlefield if you have it in your hand, in your opening hand. So this thing says each non-land permanent you control is all colors. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So you start the game off with this thing into the battlefield. You play a basic plains. You pass the turn. You draw a card. You play a basic mountain. You play a Scion of Draco. Okay. Because you have domain, because lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So you play, regardless of what land you have, you play a Scion of Draco on turn 2. So this thing says each non-land permanent you control is all colors. So Scion of Draco says each creature you control has Vigilance if it's white, Hexproof if it's blue, Lifelink if it's black, First Strike if it's red, Trample if it's green. And it doesn't say each other creator. So if you have Leyline of the Guildpact into the battlefield, Scion of Draco is all colors and gets all his abilities. Vigilance, Hexproof, Lifelink, First Strike and Trample, and Flying on turn 2. A 4/4. This is insane. I mean, Leyline of the Guildpact, Mountain, tap, Ragavan, pass the turn, opponent does, I don't know, whatever, Delighted Halfling. Your turn, you go, land, Scion of Draco. What are they going to do? You cannot remove this thing if you don't remove Leyline of the Guildpact before, and on the main deck, not many decks can remove Leyline of the Guildpact. So this thing is insane. If you go Leyline of the Guildpact, basic planes, you can actually go turn 1 Leyline Binding. This is insane. Turn 1 Leyline Binding. What is this? Territorial Kavu. This thing, you can play a 5/5 on turn 2, regardless of what land you have on the battlefield. Blessing of the Namel, Deflim, Chaos Might, Might of Alara will all have always +5/+5. This is insane. So, Leyline of the Guildpact in the right deck, which is obviously Domain Zoo, will be super explosive and won't make any sense. This deck is going to be #1 deck. This is just too strong, in my opinion. And I don't know about other formats, but I think Domain is a good archetype in almost every single Magic format. But in Modern, this is going to be very, very, very good. We also have some borderline cards, such as Seasai Weatherlight Captain. Seasai Weatherlight Captain gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. So if you build like, I don't know, Boros Legends or Winota Legends or whatever, with this, all your legends, Ragavan, Isamaru, Mary, or whatever legends you play in that deck, all will be all colors. So Seasai will get +1/+1 for each color, so +5/+5, and this thing is going to be a 7/7 for 3 mana. And if you pay 5, 1 of each mana, you will have it, because Leyline of the Guildpact says lands you control every basic land type in addition to their types. You search your library for a legendary permanent card, we convert the mana cost less than Seasai's power, so 7 or less. Put that card into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. This is insane. Not so easy to get online, but not even so hard. It's just 3 mana, 0 mana, and 10/5. But this is insane. And what about Feyborrow Elder? So this thing is a 0/0. We get +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. So he is a 2/2. But he will be a 5/5, because color among permanents you control counting himself, so with Leyline he's a 5/5 that costs only 3 mana, has Vigilance, and tap for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So you will add exactly this mana here needed for Seasai to activate his abilities, her ability. So this is pretty insane, and I think this is pretty broken, but we will see. I often overvalue new cards because I'm so excited to play with them, but Leyline of the Guildpact really is looking like a super good card. So I think that for really competitive cards we are over, but I have an honorable mention that I wanted to show you guys, the 11th card from Murders at Karlov Manor. It's this one. The Pride of Halclade. So this thing here is a wall and costs 11 mana. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. He obviously has Defender. By the way, that thing is a crocodile, elk, turtle. How cute is that? He's probably like a Simic creation or whatever. My gosh, that just look at this. This thing he is so cute. I mean, he looks like my dog. This thing is too cute not to mention. By the way, back to us. So when you activate this thing until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its toughness and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So you get this thing to attack, and you will eventually draw, if this thing does combat damage to the opponent, 15 cards. So this is insane. But how can we use this? Because on its own we won't be able to cast that. So what are the options here? A while ago, someone tried to play a Walls Tribal in Modern, and they played it with Overgrown Battlement, X-Wing Guardian, Archdruid the Strategist, Assault Formation, and all big Walls payoffs. You can find lists online, but I will eventually make a YouTube short about this and create my own list, so you can try to play it if you want. By the way, I think this card in the right wall shell, I think 1 or 2 off of this Pride of Falklade, can actually close out the game and block almost everything that is going to pass through Earth and not flying. Like you can block everything, even a creature with hammer on it. So this is pretty good. I mean, you can go turn 1, that wall with 4 toughness, turn 2 Overgrown Battlement, and turn 3 you can already play the Pride of Falklade, so this is pretty big. Turn 3 at 215, followed by a turn 4 Archdruid or Assault Formation, it's probably GG. So if you play things in the right order, this thing can be pretty dangerous. Okay guys, so I think that's all for today. Thank you for staying with me, and I hope that you are as excited as I am to test the new cards, and I cannot wait to try all the decks we've talked about. By the way, I wanted to say thank you once more for all the support I constantly receive every single day. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, because only 7% of viewers are actually subscribed. It's free and it will take you just 1 second. Thank you guys for staying with me. See you in the next video. Have a nice day.